for joining us today. Today's presentation, we will be covering post-high school and college and career readiness for refugee youth. We have a few housekeeping items before we get started. First off, we will be taking any troubleshooting questions during the presentation, and you can email info@brycs.org for those, or you can use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll also be recording and archiving this presentation, and all participants will receive a follow-up email with a link to that archived information, as well as a short evaluation of today's presentation. You will also see at the bottom right-hand side of your screen a copy of the slides. Feel free to download those and take notes as we go through the slides today. We have muted all the phone lines, so today only the moderators will be available to talk by phone. So if you do have questions, either throughout the presentation or during the Q&A session at the end, you will need to use the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. So without further ado, I will introduce one of our first presenters today. This is Margaret McDonald, and she has worked with us on programs and services for refugee, immigrant, trafficked children for 17 years. She's conducted program planning and evaluations, provided placement and follow-up services for unaccompanied and separated children, and run a national outreach and education program on child trafficking. She's worked with specialized refugee foster care programs, written on patterns and trends in the resettlement of unaccompanied refugee children in the U.S., and conducted research on the issue of child trafficking. She currently provides TA, training and technical assistance on services to refugee and immigrant youth and families, and she recently authored our guidebook on raising teens in a new country. She earned her master's degree in social work from Catholic University of America. Thanks, Margaret, for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jackie. Hi, everyone. I just want to quickly go through our objectives for the webinar today. In general, we want to look at ways to prepare refugee students for moving on to colleges and careers, ways to involve refugee parents in that process, and to delve into some promising practices among programs that are serving refugee youth who are transitioning into colleges and careers. So if you're working with this population, particularly newcomers and their families who are moving through high school and looking at what's next, for this group, the process can seem really complex and is likely quite unfamiliar. So there are some things that you can do in general to help this group of youth. Help them understand the options that are available. So from local community colleges to traditional four-year universities, staying close to home, moving away for school, the technical and vocational programs that may exist in your community to prepare for jobs and careers. And then within high school, while they're still in school, dual enrollment programs and other career training programs that they can start even before they've graduated to help them prepare. One really crucial thing that is super helpful at this point in particular in refugees' lives is mentorship. It provides a community connection, but more concretely in terms of readying for college or a career, it provides the one-on-one assistance that may be really hard to get in any other way. The application process for college, figuring out financial aid, or trying to figure out how to get a job that pays well is complex and unique to each person and very time-consuming. And most guidance counselors don't have anywhere near the time to work with students one-on-one to help them through these steps. So that's where mentoring can really be invaluable. And then simply encouraging this group of teens to stay in school. Many of them may have interrupted education. They may be learning a new language, which makes schooling difficult and unappealing. And in addition, their families may be struggling financially, so there are a lot of pulls to leave school and start working as soon as possible. So the more you can do to help convey to this group of youth how important a high school diploma is for now and for all future earnings, as well as post-secondary education. For those who are preparing for college, a first and an obvious step is to help teens think through what the career options are and then the steps they need to get there. And those steps can start when they're in high school, even in the classes that they're taking, and I'll get back to that in a moment. It is useful to host bilingual programs or to find local bilingual programs on the college admission process and the process of financing college. Some programs like this are provided by local colleges, and that's one way that you can partner with local community colleges or other schools to help support students that you are working with. If you have ELL classes, you can take those students on a field trip to local community colleges, particularly if those community colleges have an international student center or an ELL center. Find out what they have to offer. Take your students to that center so they see the concrete support that's available to them if they were to go to college. If you're doing information sessions, invite former ELL students who are now in college or who have completed college, whether 2-year schools or 4-year schools, to talk through their experience of the process, give tips and guidance, and simply encouragement that this is something that is possible, that is doable. During the high school years, consider programs like AVID if that's something that your high school offers. Look into trying to get refugee students into those programs. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and that particular program works on teaching the disciplines and routines needed to be successful in school and looking forward to college. So if it's not a program that exists in your school system, you can look into bringing it to your school system. I believe AVID also has adaptations for English language learners. And don't rule out college prep courses. So some ELL students may have advanced enough English to actually participate in those classes, but their parents likely would need help to advocate to get them into those classes. And even students who are not advanced in English may still be able to take some classes like advanced math classes. And as I referenced, parents may need help in getting kids into things like advanced college prep classes in their high school. Parent involvement is crucial in this process. So drawing parents in is also crucial. One first step is just finding what refugee parents, the parents of the children you're working with, need, and help provide that, whether it's related to college or careers or not. The more parents see you as a resource, the more likely they are to be involved and to be responsive. Host information sessions for parents as well as youth, and send home invitations in families' native languages. Note on the invitation that you'll be providing interpreters in those languages. Share information on scholarships for immigrant and refugee students, and advertise that you'll be sharing information on how to finance college and scholarships and other financial support that is available specifically for refugee and immigrant students. It can also be helpful to help parents understand what the timeline is in general for college applications. For a lot of refugee and immigrant families, these older kids are relied on in the family to provide child care for younger siblings, household help, and so on. So if parents understand that in this 1 month crunch period, kids are really going to need to be working on essays and finalizing and they may be able to free up a little time for their kids from their other responsibilities to work on applications and so on. Look into parent centers within schools. These are things that could be staffed by parent volunteers through PTA and other similar organizations, and they can provide access to parents to computers, to information on college and careers, on financing college, and look at using refugee school impact funds if possible to fund parent liaisons and other supportive services for this. For those youth who are going to move directly into the work world from high school, help them look into local job training options, explore what exists in your community, either through dual enrollment high school programs or at local community colleges, and help them find resources to get better paying and more rewarding work when they leave school. You can assist students in enrolling in career and technical assistance programs. Joint CTE and ELL programs are ideal in helping students prepare for the workforce and receive English language support at the same time. So if that rare beast exists in your community, take advantage. And for students who are still in school, encourage them to get part-time jobs that can help them gain workplace skills, improve their English, get more comfortable with workplace expectations in the U.S. And military service is an option for young adults who have a green card and can also provide real-world career experience and training and potentially education funds after leaving the military. So I'm going to stop here. I want to move on to look at a program that in Houston, Texas, PAIR, Partnership for the Advancement and Immersion of Refugees. And this program is doing much of the work that I was just talking about. So I'd like to introduce you to Shana Holmes and Mariel Sanchez, who will be speaking about their work at PAIR. Shana is the program manager for Global Leaders program within PAIR. She oversees educational mentoring programming designed to support refugee high school students' cultural acclimation, social and emotional well-being, leadership skills, and educational aspirations. She graduated from SIT Graduate Institute with a master's degree in conflict transformation with a concentration on youth program leadership and holds a bachelor's degree from Texas A&M University. In conjunction with her master's degree, Shana was a Peace Corps Master's International student as a youth development volunteer in Ukraine. Prior to joining PAIR, Shana was a senior facilitator for World Learning's Youth Peace Building and Leadership program. Mariel Sanchez is the program manager for the Global Scholars program within PAIR. Mariel designs and oversees PAIR programming that provides intensive career exploration and college access support initiatives for refugee junior and senior high school students. Prior to joining PAIR, she worked at the YMCA International Services, providing legal representation and case management services to victims of crime, asylum seekers, refugees, and other immigrants in the Houston area. Mariel graduated from the Fletcher School at Tufts University with a Master of Arts in Law and Diplomacy and holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Texas at Austin. So Shana and Mariel, welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you about your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introductions. Hi, everyone. This is Shana Steen. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about PAIR. So PAIR has been around for over 11 years now, and we originally started off as a student group at Rice University, and then 11 years ago, we're turned into a nonprofit. We currently have 4 full-time staff, 4 or 5 part-time staff, and 2 AmeriCorps Vistas in the office. And about annually, we serve 400 students with the help of 200 volunteers. And our programs are kind of divided up into age levels. We have our learners middle school program and an after-school program that we work on social and emotional skills, English language acquisition, and also do some in-school individual mentoring and tutoring. We have our Leaders High School After School program, which is what I manage. And in that program, we work on social and emotional well-being, English language acquisition when necessary, and we spend a lot of time on leadership development and college access. And then lastly, we have our Scholars program, which is for upper high schoolers. It's for juniors and seniors, and it's a community-based program with working professionals matched with students where they meet outside of school, and they do a lot of career exploration and preparation for college. And so I want to tell you a little bit more about my programs that I've been running for the past 4 years. So I basically am running two after-school programs at 2 high school sites. Each program has 30 to 40 kids each, and each session day has about 10 to 15 volunteer mentors. So recruiting for my program typically involves home outreach, where we try to meet families and show them our faces and show them our logo and our flyers. This is what PAIR is. This is what you're sending your kids to after school or weekend field trips. And we also like to visit schools. Sometimes we'll go to ESL classes and pass out flyers if we can get them translated in Kinyarwanda and Arabic and other languages. But a big part of our recruitment is word of mouth. It's students who love the program who bring their friends. So over the past couple of years since I've been developing the program, we've built a really strong reputation, and that's important. So basically, it's group mentoring facilitated by college students in our after-school sessions. Each session has a routine. In the beginning, it's some unstructured time to build relationships, playing games, and then it leads into structured team-building activities where we focus a lot on learning names and becoming comfortable with each other and kind of getting out of our comfort zone. And then we break up into small groups, and the college students lead the students through curriculum that I've developed with the help of a college access organization and with the help of collaborating with the schools over the years, with the college counselors, with the ESL teachers. And the college access topics we cover kind of has a rhythm to it. So we start off with getting everyone acquainted with the school, with the important people in the school that they'll need to know, especially by the time they become seniors. They'll need to know their APs and the registrar and where to get their transcripts. And we start that off early because we've noticed our students need to hear things multiple times. So from then learning the layout of the school and the important people, we move on to graduation requirements, which gets a bit technical and tedious, but we need to break down these things. What is class rank? What is GPA? Because those are important things that when they get to their senior year, it's a little too late if they don't understand those things. Also standardized tests. That's a requirement in Texas. Students have to pass their standardized tests to be able to graduate from high school. So they need to know what these tests are that everyone's making such a big deal about that they're taking twice a year. After we get through that, we kind of move on a little to the future, forward thinking about college. What are the opportunities after they get out of high school? And then the more abstract concepts to our students are what are majors and degrees and how does that align with careers? So we spend some time trying to link all of those things together. And then we backtrack a little bit and talk about what are the things you can do in high school to prepare for college, and that includes going to after-school programs like PAIR or joining sports teams or joining band or choir, and lots of summer opportunities. We spend a lot of time, we cultivate summer opportunities for our students. I didn't get to mention that. We also run small summer programs for our middle and high school students, but we also partner with other organizations to provide other opportunities so our students can learn during the summer, not forget their English, and have things to put on their college applications. And then we also do the technical skills of filling out applications, either online or by hand, as we notice a lot of our students don't fill out things what we would consider very professionally, and so we have to work on punctuation and capitalization over and over again, and email etiquette as well, all things that will make them prime them for success when they're applying for college and for jobs. We also cover social and emotional topics. We always start off the semester by talking about identity, and that's good for relationship building and helping their volunteer mentors understand who they are and where they're coming from. We also always talk about goals and incorporate how graduating from high school and going to college, whether those the things they want in their future, graduating from high school is the first step. And then our kids are under a lot of stress, so we always talk about stress management, effective communication, handling their emotions, positive role models, social media, their presence on social media, how that ties into their well-being and their future success. We also take field trips so students can explore Houston and feel a part of their community. Every year we do a college tour Typically, we go to University of Houston, but we've been to Rice before, and students have also been to Houston Community College. We also do community service activities. So that's a big recap of after school. Yeah, I'm going to switch over to Marielle now.
Hi, this is Marielle. So I'm going to talk about the Global Scholars Program, which is an initiative that we started 2 years ago specifically for junior and senior students who are on a different level in getting ready for college. So in the after-school program, we have college volunteers that come and meet with a group of students, but we found that the juniors and seniors could not really get what they needed all the time in that format because first, as Margaret mentioned earlier, as they get older, they have more responsibilities at home. They also start working, so their schedules don't necessarily align with being on site at the school during after-school hours. So we needed something that would fit that availability that they have that's very different from other high school students. And second, they just needed more individualized, specialized support that we could not offer in a group mentoring model, and they really just needed a one-on-one attention considering that they're all in different places of their career goals and their career paths. So that's how it started, and we limit this program to 25 to 30 students that are in 11th and 12th grade, and it's open to students primarily that are coming from our peer after-school program, but we also get referrals from schools, from community organizations, and other people involved with the refugee population. It is community-based, which means that it's not based specifically at the high schools. We have mentors that meet our students at their homes, and then the second part of that is that our staff is also very involved in supporting them and helping them through applications. So the two components is that each mentor gets one volunteer who they're mainly working professionals, they're young professionals that can relate to the students a little bit better. And the second component is they receive a lot of case management from myself and from a part-time program coordinator. So we work with them one-on-one, and examples of what the case management looks like. It can be advocating for a student at the school so that they can get the right classes on their schedule, or it can be taking them to the IRS office to get the documents that they need to get their FAFSA done. It could be driving them to interviews, to help them seek volunteer opportunities or organizing those for them ourselves, writing letters of recommendation for them, and there is a lot of emphasis on writing essays and personal statements because that's what they're going to need to do for a lot of applications, primarily for college admissions and scholarships. So we create our own curriculum, same as in the after-school program, with the guidance of a local college access organization, but it has to be adapted to the one-on-one mentoring model because it's going to be the mentors and our staff delivering that material, and also to the learning abilities of our students. If you give them really dense material in a way that's not engaging enough, they're not going to pick up on it, and it's just going to go over their heads. But our activities are more specific to career exploration and the hands-on work that it takes to go to college. So we start with building just organization, time management, good habits that are basic to any kind of relationship or any kind of success with the complex processes they have to go through. So how to keep track of your meetings, how to set up an email account, how to actually check that email account because our kids are very clueless about all the new technologies available. Second is doing some research. So what are your actual options and what is feasible for you? Because we introduce all these ideas to them in the after-school program. Yes, there are four-year universities. Yes, we go on these great field trips. But some of our kids, for some of them, in reality, that their only opportunity, the point where they're at, is community college. And then we look at transfer options and what that looks like to track the career path that they want. It's very common for our students to say, hey, I want to be a doctor, but they have no idea of how long that's going to take or how much it's going to cost. So it's really helping them see that in a more tangible way. Because, as Shana mentioned, here in Texas, they have to take 5 state-mandated tests. 2 of those are English and 1 is U.S. history, which are very difficult subjects for our kids. There is some pressure on our mentors to do a little bit of tutoring and at least help them get comfortable with the material and the format of different exams. So there is a bit of work, especially for juniors and then seniors that are maybe on the border of not being able to meet those requirements. Writing resumes and starting outlining all the activities that they have done through high school, and if they haven't done a lot because they just got here or they didn't know what extracurriculars were when we met them, then helping them join activities or participate in more volunteer work or other things that can be available to them. There is, of course, a lot of hand-holding through college applications. As Shana mentioned, they don't know how to fill out forms. There are a lot of really difficult questions that are complex for any kid, let alone a refugee kid who doesn't have all their information. And as I said before, writing personal statements, getting their stories, which is why it's very important for them to build that relationship with us and with their community volunteers so that we can help prompt them in brainstorming and going through that writing process, which can be very slow, but also kind of very rewarding and a great learning experience for our kids. Financial aid, there's the element of financial literacy where you teach them about student loans and the implications of taking out any kind of loan, what happens when they get to college and how they get their financial aid dispersed through bank accounts and other things that are unfamiliar to them. And finally, we see our seniors through their transition to college. So it's not just, hey, you got accepted and you got financial aid approved, making sure they show up to orientation, that they enroll in classes, that they know how to set up a class schedule, and that they show up in their first couple of weeks and all the payments are made and they have their books. So it's very comprehensive and holistic, and it requires a lot of work on both our mentors and our staff, but it's really been a strategy that has worked really well to the extent that 88% of our students ended up graduating on time, which was not the rate that we had in previous years, and more than 90% are actually enrolled in college and successfully complete their first semester right after their high school graduation. But of course, it's not all easy. Our students are very challenging because they are not homogeneous. And if anyone listening who's worked with refugees before knows that they are so different in terms of where they come from, what languages they speak, but also in their education history. So some of our kids come here and are very advanced academically, intellectually, and are able to pursue opportunities that are a lot more challenging, whereas some students come with zero literacy or almost no schooling if they grew up in refugee camps or if they were constantly moving from place to place. So having to tailor our curriculum and make sure that every student gets out of it what they're supposed to get, it's one of our biggest challenges, and that's why they need very individualized attention. But that individualized attention is not easy. As I said, it takes a lot of time for our kids to really grasp all the knowledge, to get through all the different portions of applications. Transportation, Houston's really widespread, and we don't have the most effective bus system, so they really rely on us and our community volunteers to pick them up, to drive them places if they have to drop off documents at a college campus, if they have an appointment for vaccinations or things like that. We have to do that for them because they're young and they don't have cars, they don't know how to drive, and it's also not easy to get around in a city like this. And then our staff capacity, we really only have 2 people in my program and then 2 people in Shana's program, so it's just a matter of having skilled staff that cares enough to really pursue the work and be persistent with all the obstacles that these students have to face. And then that's more at the program and organization level, but there are bigger systemic issues that we have in our public schools. Our students often live in low-income areas and attend schools that are low-performing, under-resourced, overcrowded, that have a lot of other at-risk populations to pay attention to. So, of course, not all administrators are available to them. Our students really require a lot of advocacy on our part to be able to get through the counselors or the teachers or the person in charge that they need to see and needs to help them. That's on the high school side, and then on the college side, we have 50-plus steps on the college admissions process from the moment a junior takes the SAT to the moment they can actually start school. So there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of things that are just really boring and difficult to get across to these kids, and it's easy for them to feel like giving up and get frustrated. And then when we try to teach them that material, of course, it's not the most fun to learn, so we have to make sure to make it dynamic and engaging enough for them. Some of our students come here so late, and despite all our efforts and tutoring that may be available at their schools or through our own volunteers, it's just not enough to help them change their academics significantly or help them increase their SAT scores to a great extent. So those kids, it's sometimes a disappointment to tell them that their only option is going to be a community college or a technical school when they really have four-year universities on their minds because that's what they've seen on TV or that's what their parents tell them they want them to pursue. Our reliance on volunteers, because we have a small staff, we have to train and supervise volunteers. In the after-school program, our college students are not necessarily equipped or don't have the maturity because they're college students and teenagers themselves to deliver the material as effectively as we would want them to. And then with our adult volunteers, it really is a big task and a big commitment to mentor a student for a full year and pay attention to everything that they need. So it's a matter of sustainability and making sure they don't burn out. And then limited family support. Our efforts are very grassroots, so we're always meeting students at their homes and we get to meet their parents, but it's also very difficult to get them engaged in all these processes that kids have to get through to go to college, simply because there's a huge gap in the knowledge of their parents. We can't be translating for 30 different languages, and also our families are sometimes not even present in the kids' lives. These are parents that work 3 jobs, so even if there are meetings at schools and parent engagement sessions, it's really hard for them to make it. So a lot of the challenges that our kids have are the same that our parents are facing. They don't have transportation to get to meetings, so we try to communicate that information as best as we can. So I'll pass this back to Shayna.
So we'll get back to a little more of the uplifting component about what works in our programs. So our relationships. Marielle and I work so closely as a team. The kids kind of come into my program and they're used to the fun after school. And then when we've reached capacity for what I can handle providing services and the college students can handle providing them with, we're able to pass them off to Marielle to actually take them fully through the process of getting them into college. And I don't think that would work very well if we didn't have a great relationship trying to serve these kids. We also have really good relationships with our schools. We're really close with the college counselors and with the ESL teachers, and they support us and recruit for us. And that kind of helps us also know what is happening at the schools. When some of the information isn't very centralized, having those contacts really helps you be engaged in the schools and know what the kids are actually dealing with on a daily basis. We're also part of the Houston Consortium to where we keep up with what resettlement trends are and what's going on with the refugee agencies. We have relationships with the local college access organization, and we've licensed their curriculum, like Marielle mentioned, which was really helpful in developing our own, but ours definitely had to be tailored in a much different way to reach our student population. We also have relationships with a couple scholarship donors that had over the past couple of years who provide scholarships exclusively for our students. And those are really essential in helping them get through some of those initial fees before their financial aid has kicked in. Another thing that has worked really well in our programs has been our community building efforts. Our after-school sessions, the kids know exactly what is going to happen every day regardless of their English language comprehension. They know when they get there, they have time to play some games and casually talk with the mentors. They know that next we'll get in a big circle and we'll all go through and say our names for the millionth time because everyone's still learning names, and then that will play a fun game. And then they know that I say, hey, pair, they say, hey, what, and they stop and they listen. They know the expectations. They come up with their own rules at the beginning of the semester, and they know when they break those rules, there'll be consequences, and they won't be allowed to come to the program if they continue to break those rules. It's a really set environment where students feel safe and comfortable and know that there's people that care about them there. And like we talked about before, our curriculum is very specific to our students, to our schools, to the things that they specifically deal with in Houston. And so that is, like Marielle, really time-consuming and tedious, but that's how it has worked the best over the years that I've been here.
And then as far as our individual mentor program has been pretty successful. it's really helpful for students to just have an adult who works and has been through college themselves and the college admissions process, just to look up as a role model and to really help them with everything that they need that's specific to them. But with that, we had to come up with a much more stricter and comprehensive screening process, which really helped us select the best volunteers that we could find. So we have a lot of people apply, but we have to make sure to run background check and do references for them because they are meeting with our kids unsupervised, and the well-being and safety of our students comes first. So I'm constantly checking in on the kids and making sure that everything's all right with their mentors, but I'm also coaching the mentors to make sure they're having productive meetings, the kids are making progress. We've both talked about home outreach. I think that it's really important to gain that trust both from students and their family members, to see them at their homes and where they live and learn what the realities of their lives are like. It's very difficult to come up with a program when you don't have a connection to what's happening around. So I'm constantly visiting them and just checking in to see how they're doing. If their parents have questions, they can always ask me, and they're used to seeing my face around. So I think that that's been something that's been very beneficial to PAIR, and I highly recommend, because it's hard to get parents to show up to any kind of group meeting, but it's easy if you go to them. And of course, always measure the progress and the impact of what you're doing with the relationship that we have with our students. We're constantly getting feedback from them, which allows us to constantly update our materials and our activities. We always hear about what they liked, what they didn't like, but information in terms of what places they're applying to, what places are they getting accepted to, the amount of scholarship awards that they receive, and all those college access indicators, checking in with them all the way through their first semester in college to make sure that they're still enrolled and they haven't dropped or just fallen through the cracks. And finally, both of our programs really take this approach of both doing work and having fun. I try to plan group activities for our students and their mentors. So in the past, we've gone to see the Houston Symphony, we had a picnic, we go bowling, to create that sense of community and kind of normalize the fact that these students are hanging out with adults. And we also do field trips to, as Shana mentioned, local universities and career fairs and other things that are both educational as well as entertaining for them. So that's all we have, and we look forward to your questions.
Thank you both. With that, I will introduce our next speaker, who will present an additional promising practice for everybody. We have Kylie DeBold, and she is a social worker who has been in the field of refugee and migration services since 2013. She currently serves as a Children's Services Specialist, USCCB Migration and Refugee Services, where she provides programmatic oversight, technical assistance, and training to a nationwide network of foster care programs designed for unaccompanied refugee and migrant children. Previously, Kylie had held positions in youth development and direct service practice with refugee youth. Her passion for international child welfare originated during her tenure in Kenya, where she served with an organization that seeks to expand educational opportunities for children living in the vastly deprived areas of Nairobi. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and International Studies from the University of Missouri, Columbia, and a Master of Social Work from the University of Maryland, Baltimore. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Kylie, to talk about the patient transport system.
Great. Thank you for that introduction, Jackie. Hi, everyone. So as Jackie mentioned, I was asked to join this webinar today to talk to you about a promising practice from Bethany Christian Services in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the program that I'll be speaking about is a project that I worked on a few years ago while I was working for their Unaccompanied Refugee Minors program. We refer to it as the Patient Transport Program, and it was essentially a job training program for high school graduates who were current or recently discharged clients of the URM program. And this program was developed through a partnership between Bethany Christian Services and Spectrum Health Hospital in Grand Rapids. So to give a little bit of background, patient transporters are the staff who move patients to and from examinations and treatments within the hospital. The medical field is moving towards requiring certification for this role because there's a certain level of skill and medical knowledge that's required to do this job. And so this is what this program aimed to do. It aimed to get young adults who are refugees certified in patient transportation so that they could acquire stable jobs in the medical field. This collaboration between Bethany and Spectrum Health really grew out of unmet needs from the standpoint of both organizations, with both sides offering something of value to the other. It was developed as a 10-week training program that consisted of 2 parts. So the first part was a classroom-based learning. It was classroom-based learning using a curriculum that was developed by the National Association of Healthcare Transport Management. The instructor for that part of the program was a Bethany Christian Services staff member who had gotten certified to teach the curriculum. And then the second part of the program was a hands-on internship at the hospital that was overseen by the department manager there. I will add that having a Bethany staff member instruct the classroom portion definitely was a benefit because he was familiar with the backgrounds of the young adults who participated and the challenges that they had faced and that they continue to face. So he was willing to spend extra time tutoring youth who needed it to ensure their success, and he also offered specialized attention to linguistic challenges. So even the youth who were very fluent in everyday English struggled with some of the medical terminology that was needed to get certified, and it's a very understandable thing. Even native English speakers struggle with that medical terminology. And interested participants were required to go through a formal application and interview process, and 10 young adults were ultimately accepted into the program. So some of the basic eligibility requirements that applicants needed to have were to be affiliated with the Bethany URM program, either as a current client or a recently discharged client. They had to be 18 or older, preferably with a high school diploma or a GED, and they needed to be able to read and write in English at an 8th grade level or higher. They also needed basic computer skills and the ability to transport a 200-pound patient on a stretcher alone and be able to lift equipment and supplies that weighed up to 60 pounds. Also definitely worth highlighting is that participants were required to commit 2.5 months to this training program, so this meant that they needed a flexible schedule. The classroom portion was held for 4 hours on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then students interned at the hospital on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They didn't receive compensation, but Bethany was able to secure funding from the state refugee office for the students to participate. And this was why participants really needed to be a part of the URM program so that they could have that financial support. We did ask participants to contribute $50 towards their enrollment, though, as this was thought to be kind of an incentive for them to successfully complete the program. We also kind of framed it as an opportunity for them to invest in themselves. So this program offered several benefits for the URM participants. Some of these included the opportunity to learn soft job skills, interpersonal skills, responsibility, and strong work ethic. The opportunity for hands-on learning through an internship. That was a really key part since some of the participants hadn't held jobs before. Also, earning a national certification for a critical job in every hospital across the country. And also that role, the patient transport role in the hospital, often offers opportunities for people in the hospital setting or the medical field. For both Bethany and Spectrum Health Hospital, the program offered the opportunity for each to build a new community partnership. And then some additional benefits for Spectrum Health involvement included the ability to develop and properly train program participants because they were after they successfully completed the program. They were able to leverage recruiting power and that they were able to observe the participants as they went through the training program to determine their skill sets and ability over a 10-week period. And then also they had the opportunity to diversify their workforce. We had participants from Guatemala, Mexico, Mali, the DRC, and Burma. All of them were bilingual and some of them were even multilingual. In terms of the outcomes for this program and things that we learned, I will say that everyone was very, very excited to get this program up and running, and we ended up with only a limited amount of time to market the program and recruit applicants prior to the start of the candidate interviews. So we only ended up with 15 applicants because of the eligibility requirements and the time commitment, and we had 10 slots to fill. So there were a few youth who were accepted into the program who barely met the eligibility, which kind of contributed to our participant outcomes. So in the end, 7 out of 10 participants met all of the requirements to become certified, and so they earned that certification and they were offered positions at Spectrum Health Hospital. Of the 3 who were not hired, 2 were unable to meet the learning objectives due to language barriers, despite the additional support that the instructor had provided. And then the remaining participant earned the certification, but She was anticipated to pass the GED and ultimately was not able to pass, and therefore she wasn't eligible for hire because that was a criteria for the hospital. I will say, though, that regardless of whether the young adults were hired or not, all participants acquired very important job skills through participation. The curriculum alone, in addition to the medical-related items, it also covered topics such as ethics, adapting to change, dealing with stress, conflict resolution, emotional maturity, and also how to appropriately communicate in various different situations. I think one of the most disappointing outcomes was that this program was piloted in 2013, but it wasn't offered again after this, despite our initial intention for it to be an annual program. So that's why I've been talking about this program in past tense. Unfortunately, the relationship was maintained by individuals at Bethany and Spectrum Health rather than being embedded in the organization themselves. And so the partnership kind of fizzled after there were a few staff departures and role changes at both organizations. It was just very hard to keep it going despite the benefits. So it might be kind of difficult for another organization to replicate this exact program, but I would like to offer some recommendations on how you can use this idea and concept to create job opportunities for the refugee young adults who you work with. So the partnership between Bethany and the hospital started through a Bethany staff connection with someone who worked at Spectrum Health. So I would encourage you to draw from the connections of your own staff, your foster parents, and your volunteers, or the other people who are affiliated with your program to determine if there are any available opportunities. Seek out networking opportunities in your communities to learn more about other like-minded organizations and organizations that might be needing to fill some kind of void. This partnership was ideal because it was beneficial for both sides. And always remember that you won't know if an organization or a business is interested in partnering with you if you don't initiate conversation and ask the question. Research local training programs that your clients or the people who you work with may be eligible for, and initiate a conversation. And then determine if there are ways that your organizations can help each other with the end goal of developing a long-standing partnership. And then lastly, ensure that various staff members from your agency are engaged in every meaningful partnership in order to minimize risk in instances of staff turnover. I know it takes a lot of work to develop a strong partnership and a useful partnership, so I really would recommend that you take all steps necessary to ensure that your agency is able to maintain them when you have them. And with that, Jackie, I will turn it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. With that, we'll open it up to questions and answers. If you have a question or a comment, please use the chat box on the right, and we will take a few questions here. We do have an earlier question from Crystal posed to Pear on whether or not you could share any of the curriculum.
I think as Shayna mentioned earlier, I don't know if even if we could share our curriculum, it would be all that helpful to people trying to use the same lessons, just because we build it with the knowledge that we've gained from our specific kids' lives. So every activity is geared towards learning something about that school or about the schools in Texas, or it's just serves a very specific function. But the other reason why we're not allowed to share that is because some of the outline and the kind of structure of the syllabus we actually license and pay for from another college access organization. So our recommendation would be to find a similarly minded college access organization in your area and see what they offer and whether they have written lesson plans that you can start drawing information from. But the basic outline in Shayna's program, the after-school program, as she said, we have icebreakers, we have fun activities and team building, and then we have a lesson covering the variety of topics that we went over. The lessons for my individual mentors are really more of a kind of a mentoring guide structure. So it gives instructions on what to teach. It gives links to different websites that the kids can use to explore career interests, and then it provides just information for how to fill out financial aid and how to practice writing and how to start writing an essay and things like that. But there are plenty of free resources online that you can look up for college access, and we'd be happy to share a couple of the ones that we commonly go to gain information about general just college knowledge and skills.
Thank you so much. And for Kylie, we have a quick question here on if you could repeat the name of the organization that offered the certification that you talked about.
Yes, so the curriculum was developed by the National Association of Healthcare Transport Management. I think if you were to Google patient transport, that's probably what will come up. I think that's kind of the standard curriculum for this role. And then so the Bethany staff member was trained to facilitate this curriculum. They have national trainings. I don't know how often, but he attended one of those to become a facilitator.
Okay. And could you talk a little bit more about what the curriculum looks like, the content, the activities, the schedule?
Yeah. So I believe that there were three parts to the curriculum, like the actual in-class portion. The first part was book 1 covered choices and ethics for the workplace. It was more general. And then book 2 got a little bit more in-depth into the role. And that's where communication strategies were covered, customer service techniques and practices. And then the third portion was very specific to the role, getting into the medical terminology. And then during all 3 books that were covered during the classroom component, there was also the other part to the training, which was the internship. And that was hands-on experience at the hospital.
Great. Thank you. You'll notice in your chat box that I just put 2 links. One is a helpful resource list on mentoring, and another is a resource list that supplements today's blog, today's webinar and the blog topic. So the one on post-high school and college and career readiness, that resource list includes items on college preparation, career and workplace readiness, financial aid, and specific resources for undocumented students.
And Jackie, I also want to note it also includes highlights of several other promising practices in this area that might be helpful in terms of inspiring work in local communities. This is Margaret.
Thanks, Margaret. Do any of you have any recommendations on some incentives that you provided within your programs to ensure students remained engaged for the full year?
In addressing that question, so we don't like to provide too many incentives because that kind of will start kids just dropping in periodically, right? They're coming for, like if a teacher will give them extra credit, they'll drop in once, right? And that actually kind of disrupts community building. So I guess our incentives, right, are you're coming here because we care about you and we're teaching things that are really important to you, and we build relationships with our students. I know all of my students by name. I greet them by their names when they come in the door. I want to know how their day has been, and I ask them to come tell me if they can't come to pair. So then they'll stop by and like, I'm so sorry, Ms. Shana, I have to go to tutoring today. I'm like, oh, thanks so much for letting me know. We do have field trips, but I usually require that they come to program the week before the session to attend the field trip, because then field trips will be out of control if I have lots of kids who aren't really part of the system attending, and it lessens the quality for everyone. We do provide snacks, not too much of an incentive. They complain about them all the time. And we also provide transportation home. So we make it as easy for them to come as possible, but we want them to want to be there.
Yeah. And for the Scholars Program, I think the incentive really comes from them, right? They're the ones that want a higher education, so we give them a mentor and we're like, hey, we have this free person for you that's going to come to you and help you out, and it's really up to you to what extent you want to take advantage of the opportunity. And fortunately, all of our kids are really motivated about
higher ed and about finishing high school. So that motivation comes from them. There are struggles where sometimes the kids just lose interest or they get too busy or things like that. But on overall, once they get to junior or senior, they're actually very desperate to get help from someone that they really crave that and seek us out for helping out with whatever they need. But yeah. No material incentives.
Do you also require minimal language or reading level for students to take part in the Global Leaders program?
Not in Global Leaders. So what we do with the curriculum is that I denote in sections of the curriculum that are too advanced for students with low English fluency to be working on a specific ESL curriculum that we have. We had an ESL teacher work with us to develop it, where there's like 10 different lessons. They're small. They take about 15 to 20 minutes, and students can practice relevant vocabulary to that lesson. Like if we're learning about places around the school, they're doing vocabulary of rooms around the school. So they're not actually getting the same curriculum as the other students, but they work up to the place, and eventually next semester, next year, they can join in the groups who are doing the actual curriculum.
I see. So do you provide any interpretation assistance when delivering the curriculum, or maybe are your, on the mentoring side, are your mentors skilled in other languages? Are they as culturally diverse as your students?
Our mentors are culturally diverse, not in the languages of our students. Most of the mentors in the Global Leaders programs are mostly minority college students. That just happens to be the people that are interested in volunteering in these programs. The majority, I'd say the vast majority of our kiddos speak Kinyarwanda, which is a really difficult one. Yeah, kind of difficult to come by. And so PAIR can't be that specialized. We don't have that many resources. But we do focus on English immersion and having everyone in the room knows that English is hard, and we don't make fun of each other, and we practice English as much as we can.
Yeah, and for most of our kids, really, PAIR or the time with their individual mentors is the only time they get to speak English and practice English, because they're not speaking it at home or at their church, or even at school. They're only hanging out with other kids who speak their language. So this is their opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who's fluent in English and really practice those speaking skills.
Who's there on the friendly terms with, no grades or authority figures looming over their head.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And is PAIR, can you clarify whether or not PAIR is housed within the high school or not?
No, we have an office separate from that. We're in 2 high schools and 3 middle schools, and we're just on site for our program sessions at the high schools. We go there to recruit and visit ESL classes and pass out flyers during lunches and things like that, but we're not housed at the high schools.
Great. And we have one final question here on whether or not you find that alumni of PAIR have gained access to higher education, whether or not they continue to seek assistance after they've begun their studies at college, and if you've found resources for these students focusing on college success once they do arrive on campus.
Yeah, this is actually something I've been giving a lot of thought to now that we have 2 generations of kids that are starting college, because they get there and they're still, all of these kids have our personal cell phone numbers and they're free to call us if they want to, but we also have a conversation with them at the end, just saying like, hey, let's talk about what resources are available at your school, and we do a little bit of research with that. I think up to the first month, they're still asking questions and want additional help. But after that, they either make friends who can answer their questions, or they find out more about what's available at their schools. But I definitely try to set them up with at least the writing center and tutoring services, and show them what all the different offices are that they may need to visit to get support. And we have kids that graduate even before we started the scholars program, that whenever they get stuck on something, scholarships, or the kids that are finishing community college and want to transfer to 4-year schools, just showing them how to go about doing that. But if we had more resources, I think the college persistence part would definitely be the next step for PAIR, because we want to see all these kids get their college degrees and not give up halfway through. But it's definitely not easy even once they start, because they still don't have parents who've been through college or other people that they can reach out to.
Okay, well, with that, we've reached 2 o'clock, and so I will call time. Thank you all for joining us today. Special thank you to our speakers who took time out of their busy schedules to share their successful programs with us. And if you have any follow-up questions, please do not hesitate to contact us at BRYCS. Our information is up on the screen there. You can check out our website. You can email us at info@brycs.org or call us toll-free. And if you have additional questions for Per or for Kylie or for Margaret, we'd be happy to route your questions their way. With that, I'll just say a reminder that we have archived, or we have recorded this presentation and will archive that, and all registrants will receive a follow-up email with a copy of the slides, with the recording, as well as the short evaluation. When I close today's screen, you'll also be redirected to that evaluation, and if you could take just 1-2 minutes of your time to answer a few short questions, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we hope that you'll join us for future webinars.